This is a HeadGum podcast. Hello. This is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we mourn the loss of Pope Francis. You guys, R.I.P. the woke Pope. I am your very Muslim host, Negin Farsad, who nevertheless loved a Pope who was kind and cared about the environment, and love a Pope who understands that when an institution is in decline, you can attract more bees with Pope honey than with Pope dirt. Anyways, you know the old saying. Today, we'll discuss mini retirements and dumb phones. We'll also talk about what the White House is willing to do for you to have more babies. We'll assess the latest with SCOTUS and Pete Hegseth. He's back. And finally, we'll ask, instead of opening up your marriage, should you just have an old school, ho-hum, nothing to see here affair? I'm so excited. But today's panel, oh my gosh. Joining us on the show again, you've heard her on the show before. You've loved her on the show before. She's a comedian I've had the absolute pleasure of working with so many times. She's so funny. She's also an author. And actually, I think the first time she was on this show was to promote her book, United States of Russia, a Survivor Guide, which a lot of that has come true, but I'll let her explain that herself. She also has a brand new album. It's called Halfway There. I cannot recommend it enough. I've seen her workout bits from this album. So good. It is the incredible Vicky Kuperman. Hey, Vicky.
Hi, Negin. So happy to be here. Wish it were under better circumstances.
Yes, always. But can you just tell us, you were saying before the show that there is a chapter from the book that like literally is helpful for today. What is that?
Oh, yeah. It's like chapter 3. It's called Don't Be Political, which is the opposite of what we're doing here. But so I should take my own advice. But it starts with once your fundamentals human rights are gone, and it lists like all the stuff that's happened, and then it says this is what to do when your friends and neighbors start disappearing. And
there you go. Relevant.
I can't tell. We tried to warn people 8 years ago. So
yeah, we did. We really did. Okay. Now this next panel, it's the first time he's been on the show, but I'm so excited to have him. He's an audio producer, storyteller, and he's also host of Wait For It, the podcast. And oh my God, he's so generally delightful. It is Ronald Young Jr. Hey.
Hello, Negin. Great to be here.
Oh my God. So happy to have you both on. So folks, before we get into the show, I just wanted to share a little weird news that I have for you today. HeadGum and I will be parting ways in a few weeks. It's a tough time for media companies out there, and it's a tough time for shows like mine that talk freely about culture, but more importantly, talk freely about the current political climate. This all puts me in a tough spot because I would like to keep the show going on my own, and to do that, I need your help. If you would consider joining the Patreon, that would make it possible for me to keep this show going. If Fake the Nation is a weekly tradition that you want to keep seeing in your feed, joining the Patreon is the best way to help ensure that it continues to thrive. For as little as $4 a month, you get bonuses of the show. You can even subscribe for as little as $1 a month, and you don't actually get any benefits for that except for the knowledge that you're helping a show that you love. And Patreon offers discounts if you subscribe for the year upfront, which is a favorite option for me because it's like I do a one-time contribution. I don't have to think about it. I will keep you posted on any developments, but if I have it all my way, you'll simply keep getting the show that you love on the same feed as always. And with your help, I can make that happen. And I don't know if any of you out there are interested in sponsoring a podcast. You do hit me up. But in the meantime, please visit patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And thank you so much to everyone who does that. It's extremely moving. And it really does help keep the show alive. All right. Thank you. And let's move on with the show. And now let us get into it with topic number 1. So we dip into culture only to find that another trend has been named. That's right. The term mini retirement is officially in use. This refers to longer breaks that younger people might take while they plan their next career move. So your 20-somethings, your early 30-somethings, they'll take like a 3-month something in order to figure out what to do next, or just because they want to. I don't know. So my first question is, are either of you familiar with the mini retirement?
I only know it as...
Have a good job.
Yeah, I was going to say, I only know it as being European, which,
Right.
yeah,
Right. The month of August or
right.
whatever. That's right.
Yeah.
Ronald, what were you going to say?
Yeah, that's just called not having a job. Like
Yeah.
I remember the one time that I ever had anything that was even close to that was I was leaving a job and starting a new job, and there was like a week gap in which I was still getting paid. And I mean, it wasn't a mini retirement. I just like slept in every day and hung out with friends. I don't even think I took a trip or anything. It was pretty much a staycation. If anything, but
Right.
they keep naming things these days, like, and they keep snitching when they do it. This reminds me of quiet quitting.
Yes, it does. It's totally reminds me of quiet quitting, and it feels like a thing that didn't need to be named. Although I feel like I say that every week, a thing that didn't need to be named has been named. But they talk about so like some of the examples that we've seen out there, people that take like 3 months to travel. They've saved up $12,000 and they take 3 months to backpack around Europe. And they also talk about it as like sort of the wellness benefits you get, the mental clarity that you get from knowing then, oh, because I saw the Parthenon or whatever, I now know what I want to do with my life. And so like, there's a lot of like therapists are talking about the benefits of doing this. It also just feels like the thing you do when not only it's not about just saving $12,000. It's about also knowing that if you blow through $12,000, there's someone there to catch you when you fall. So it feels like it's like security on top of security is required, double security. And so I'm a little bit like, I don't know. I mean, not that everyone in the story was rich or whatever, but like they experienced security, I think it felt like.
Yeah. One said their parents would cover their loans, and another said all their stuff was in their mom's shed. Like they have a mom with a shed. And, and also, it's okay to do this without talking about it. It's okay to run the marathon without telling everyone. It makes me think, am I doing heroic things every day that I'm not bragging? Should I be bragging about my life? Because
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, after college, I did travel around Asia for 11 weeks, brag. But backpack brag, Tibet brag. But I didn't. Thank God there wasn't really internet and social media in use as there is today, because I would have probably been a total asshole. But we don't have to name it. It's just called being a citizen of the world. Like,
and I mean also like I did a little backpacking around Europe brag after college. It's funny because I ended up in Romania with my best friend who's a Romanian immigrant. And she was just like, listen, you're like the only person I could take to Romania because you've been to Iran. And so like, because when we arrive, immediately there's going to be problems. And like, I just don't want to explain it to someone who has never been in that context. And so I was like, yeah, totally, whatever. So we get there and we cross the border of Romania on a train. And the second after we cross, the train stops in the middle of the tracks. And they're like, these tracks are broken. So you have to get off the train in the dirt and walk to the other train because it's about 12 feet of broken line and get back on another train, And I was like, here it is. This is the thing. This is the thing she was talking about. And then we get to like her aunt's house. And the first thing Aunt said was like, oh, none of the flushes are working. So just go ahead and fill a bucket and pour that in to flush the toilets or whatever. And I was like, yep, got it. Immediate those things. So again, I'm not sure if it's like such a huge brag considering the number of toilets I flushed with a bucket, but yes, I feel like I did this. It was eye-opening, but it was just also part of youth or something.
Agreed.
Ronald, closing thoughts on this?
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's also steeped in privilege because it reminds me. I used to work straight out of college. I used to work at a management consult. No, not straight out of college. Some years after college, so I was 28, and I started working at a management consulting firm. And at the same firm, I was at the same level as a bunch of these 24-year-olds who all got there. And the whole goal was you want to get promoted and continue moving up and all that. And what would happen on more than one occasion was that one of these 24-year-olds would just be like, "Hey, Ron, I'm leaving. Today's my last day." And I'm like, "Where are you going?" They're like, "I'm going to grad school." And I'm like, why are you going to grad school? You have a full-time job. Like you're doing it already. What are you talking about? They're like, yeah, but I don't really want to do this. I'm just going to go to grad school. And I'm like, go to grad. You have this is a great job. What are you talking about?
I feel, but that makes grad school a form of mini retirement, exactly. Essentially.
Like this idea that I'm just going to leave this thing and go do something else because I have a safety net. And I'm like, I've never had that. I just always had to be like, well, time to get to the next job.
Yeah.
I feel like that was common too, that people who were like, I don't know, so I'll do grad school, which the I don't know, I'll do grad school is so expensive. Yeah. Like that's the most expensive form of I don't know. I actually think I don't knowing through Tibet is cheaper than I don't knowing through grad school. So anyway, folks, let's move on to the next point in culture. I feel like every week I'm just seeing a new article about the dumb phone. Especially right now, there's a new light phone that's coming out, the Light Phone 3, and in it, I want to talk about it because I'm so drawn. But basically, these are people that are trying to figure out how to get by with a phone that doesn't have as many functions. They have a few features, maybe they even just get a flip phone. Maybe they turn their own phone into basically a brick that doesn't have very many apps. Now, have you seen this trend? They're calling it a mini retirement of your phone. Anyway, have either of you considered doing this? Ronald, are you in the world of like wanting to do this, or have you done it?
No, I just put my phone down when I don't want to use it anymore. I use my phone a lot, but it just feels like people are like now, again, reinventing something to say like, well, we got to take a step back from. I was like, maybe you should put your phone down and go to therapy and talk about why you can't put it down instead of like having to put around a box around this thing that just really shouldn't have that much control of us. But I imagine some people maybe have more addictive personalities than others, so this might be a luxury for them. I'm just not one of those people.
Oh, you're so lucky. Honestly, I feel like most people I know cannot. And I have like time limits on my apps and stuff like that. And sometimes like I'll find myself just looking at the weather app because I have exceeded all of the time limits, and I'm like, well, let's see what the weather is, And I'm like, I think this is a problem. Vicky, where are you at with this?
Well, so I understand the want to go back in time. I think, so for anyone who didn't read the article, this latest article, the journalist tried it, but the problem is he brought his 2025 self to this. Right. And didn't think ahead, like the Metro card's on the phone and the apps are on the phone. So if you really want to do it, you got to like plan for 3 days or something and be like, what is on my phone that I need? How do I get that in tangible form? How do I return to my 1998 self or whatever you want to return to in a world that doesn't, necessarily welcome it? And then see if you can live like that. Because there are Luddites, and I respect them and I know them, the green text field that comes up on your iPhone that texts back. And that's how they live. Like they do rely on people for information or Googling or whatever. I don't think it would be possible for me. I also have quite an addiction, especially now that I have the new baby. I sit there, rock her to sleep, and I do the New York Times crossword. I have carpal tunnel. I am wearing wrist guards for my phone. So everything's on the phone.
Yeah. And I'll say it's funny because there's something about motherhood that especially in that phase that you're in, that's incredibly boring, right? Where you're just like sitting and rocking a person for hours. So then like, you're like, oh, what do I do at this time? That's like discreet. The baby won't really notice. And then that's why you end up like using your phone. And I get it. And also, but it's also, my problem is right now, this particular light phone, which I have truly considered getting, does not come with like the rideshare apps, which is what I think I would need, since I'm a touring comedian. So like I just end up needing that. But and then the other question I have for you is a lot. So I ran into an actor friend who's like a quite well-regarded actor. I won't name him. But he pulled out a flip phone and he's just like, I've been doing this for 6 months. I don't know if it'll last forever, but for right now, it's really good. My addiction was to email and responding on a timely fashion. And I don't know why I can't control myself. And one of the things that he talked about was like not having a high quality camera. And so, like, how much is the camera on your phone part of the thing for you?
I mean, I think we were, like, people forget, like, in the early aughts, or I mean the mid to early aughts, we were walking around with wristlets of cameras on our wrist to take pictures of what was going on around us on a regular basis.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the little loop. Yeah.
And bringing them back. So I feel like the idea, like when the one day when somebody, I remember the article that was like, hey, it's official, your phone camera is better than the best digital camera. It feels like that would be a reversion that I definitely could not get over, because being able to just whip out your phone, take the picture, and move on with your life is far, far easier than carrying around a digital camera all the time.
One of the, by the way, this piece that we read was called "Can Using a Dumb Phone Cure Your Brain Rot?" And one of the things that it made me realize was sort of like, I take so many photos that are meaningless and that I don't like use or look at or care to look at. And that maybe like, and maybe that's part of like maybe having a dumb phone is just not even having the lure of like pulling it out to take a photo. And I also thought this also feels very luxurious, or maybe it's not. I don't know how much a flip phone costs. That I would have, like, I would love to maybe be the kind of person that has a weekend flip phone. So I, where I'm like, I'm an asshole all week because I'm working and I need the functionality, and then on the weekends, I'm a Luddite. So let's see. I don't know. Listeners, have any of you tried this? Let me know. I'm so curious. I want to do it. I'm scared and confused. And I don't know. It shouldn't be this scary and confusing. We should all be like Ronald, who just is like puts the phone down. But I want to say, Ronald, you're a one of one. This is a very unusual situation that you have in your brain that is extremely Zen-like. All right,
Negin,
let's take it.
There was always a screen, though. That's the thing. There's always a screen they're demonizing. It used to be the television. They called it the blue.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's always a screen. So I'm like,
that's
right.
If
you're having trouble with your phone, start going to more movies where you have to put your phone down.
Yeah. Oh, movies. That's the best time ever. It's the only time I really focus is when I'm in a movie theater. All right, folks, let's take a quick break and we'll hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll get into other topics. And we are back and we're ready for topic number 2. Politics, folks. The White House is cooking up plans to get women to have more babies. They're flirting with some plans like giving a $5,000 cash baby bonus to every American mother after delivery. Another idea is to offer menstrual classes to women so they can understand when they're ovulating. And another would bestow a National Medal of Motherhood to women with 6 or more children. Now, Vicky, we'll start with you. You just did this whole process. I don't know. Were you moved by the pronatalist movement to do it, or what? Why did you do this?
Well, that's a whole separate thing about making a crazy decision. But let's start with what they're doing. $5,000 incentive. When I saw that, I said, is that per month? Because how long is that going to last for a new baby in this egg economy? Okay. Number 2, menstrual class. It's called sex ed if you actually... let sex ed happen. And number 3,
I know, like in high school, like just don't fuck with the curriculum. Yeah, okay.
And then I was talking to Max, my husband, about this, also a comedian, and I said, and now they want to do 30% of Fulbright scholars as people with children. And Max goes, oh, so they do want to do DEI? And I was laughing so hard. They don't even know what they're saying. It's not even, the obvious thing to say is it's insulting and it's scary, but it's just batshit crazy that they think this is, they don't care about families. That's the thing. Trump doesn't care about families.
Well, then the weird thing is, okay, so I was looking at that $5,000 and I thought, there should be a child credit like the one we had for whatever that was, like a year or 2 years, that started during the pandemic under Biden, and that brought a bunch of children out of poverty. That was just a monthly check. That was just a payment to families. And that's a little bit more in line with what you're saying. And in terms of a $5,000 cash bonus, like one of the things that I complained about and that I've mentioned on the show is that when I left the hospital with a new baby, I also had a bill. Even though I had wonderful insurance, I had a bill for $1,000 something or $2,000 something for the time I spent in the hospital doing the thing that the government theoretically wants, which is to have us be able to replace the population with new babies, you know? And so I think a $5,000 cash bonus would have been fantastic for me because it would have covered those expenses. Also, why don't we cover those expenses? There's like an idea. So interestingly, whenever you talk about stuff like this, you're a Democrat.
Yeah.
Whenever you're talking about redistributing money so that a family can have an easier life or feel like they can procreate, you're a Democrat. And that's what's, I think, funny about this. I don't know what menstruation classes make you, because feels a little dumb. Again, back to your it should just be high school. Now, Ronald, what do you think of these things? I don't know if you have kids or not.
I do not have kids. It feels unusual for them to encourage us to do something that, like, in a lot of cases for people who don't have money or maybe are single, like, would just be a hardship for them to raise a child. Yeah. Mm-hmm, and I feel like if there's no thought to the infrastructure or the support of raising a child or the ways in which we need to be in community in order to effectively raise children, then how are you just going to tell me to be out here just like have more kids and do what with them? And who are they going to play with? And who's going to pay for them to, like, how am I going to take care of them when I'm not around? Like, what does that mean for the rest of my life if you're forcing me to have more children? So if they're not thinking about the rest of that, then I'm like, yeah, obviously you're right. I think it's absolutely insane for them to suggest this.
Yeah. And also it requires like a holistic approach, and I want to just like shout out to New York City for having universal 4K and 3K preschool. And also to start adding, trying to add childcare into the mix for the like 0 to 3 year olds. This is not, you don't have universal pre-K all over the country, though we should. So there's a lot of elements to this that need to be addressed. That one $5,000 cash bonus doesn't address, though that also sounds nice. I mean, the other thing that I think is interesting is like Trump has pledged to be the quote fertilization president because he wants to make IVF really cheap or whatever, which again, great. I did IVF. I would have loved for that to be cheap. It was not cheap. It was really fucking expensive. So the interesting thing is, conservative Christians have real misgivings about IVF because it creates it leads to the loss of human embryos. Pronatalists are super into IVF, people like Elon Musk, because they want there to be more babies, whatever the method. They don't care about method, and they don't care about they don't necessarily care about final family structures, whereas Christian conservatives want there to be a very specific family structure that looks like a nuclear family of yore. So that's final thoughts on this, Vicky, on the tensions within the Republican, among Republicans about what kind of family we're even talking about.
Well, I love any tension within the Republican Party. What's it called? Schadenfreude. I get off on that.
Yeah.
The fertilization president is hilarious to me because IVF is very much based on statistics, and say you're going to a sperm bank or an egg bank or you're doing your own, but there's a lot of data that the doctors have combed through to give you insights, and Trump fired so many people who were in charge of that data at the CDC. So again, smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
But back to I just had to say that because I did IVF too, like 4 rounds to get that 4th round to work. So it's brutal. And it's so dependent on data. And
it's a science-based thing. Like it's, exactly. Yeah.
What were you saying? Pronatal and then the Christian right? Let them fight. That's what I say. Let them fucking fight. And let's watch. I'll place bets. Elon's going to lose. He's weak.
All right. Well, let's move into another area of politics, which is there's just one more thing I just wanted to say because I thought it was so weird. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, who, by the way, is the father of 9 and he himself has 10 siblings, so he's really into people having babies. He published a memo earlier this year pledging to prioritize transportation funding in areas where there's a higher than average birth or marriage rate, which probably means places where cars are the main, the rural areas where cars are the main form of transit. So anyways, I just thought that was interesting because they are trying to make this a part of every agency. There are multiple people within the government with which, regardless what agency they're in, are trying to sort of like implement it with their agency. So I just thought that was interesting. Okay, let us move on. SCOTUS, Saturday night, under the literal cover of darkness, the Supreme Court had a 7-2 decision pausing all deportations of Venezuelan nationals in Texas under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Buses that were taking these people were dramatically turned around because of this fast-acting SCOTUS decision. It's like, feels like maybe the first time SCOTUS is like, dude, Trump, pull it back. Ronald, what do you think of this decision?
I mean, this is I'm from Fairfax County, Virginia. In 8th grade, we take civics, and they taught us about checks and balances. And as far as and the whole idea of having a judicial branch that has checks like this is so that the president does not get too powerful. And for me, what I'm looking at is a Supreme Court that's doing its job for one of the first times in my adult life. And I really appreciate it. I think that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. This is what the law is. And I love it. Every time, especially when it's 7-2 or 9-0, because that means even the conservative justices are like, come on, son. Like, what are you doing? You can't be doing that. I love it. I hope this keeps happening.
Well, it's funny because it's all his appointed judges, because it's Alito and Thomas who are the dissenting on the 7-2 decision. So it's like, it's funny because they're like, the MAGA vetted judges that are voting against him, because even they're like, dude, the Constitution though, Yeah. Vicky, now you've been warning people of disappearings low since your survival guide. What did you make of this decision?
So I don't think it's the first time SCOTUS has pleasantly surprised me in the past few years, actually, even with the 2020 election, when they were like, no, dude, you lost in Georgia or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
This might be the first time it's worked, because he literally doesn't listen.
Yeah.
They're just complete monsters, and they're bulldozers, and they don't listen to any judges. And like you said, checks and balances do not exist for this administration at all, even when they do, so I'm pleasantly surprised to hear it worked.
Yeah, because what it's looking like right now, again, here, look at me trying to create like some sort of logical pattern out of their behavior where none might exist. But the pattern that I think we're seeing is that if they can get the bus before it takes off to Venezuela, then they'll follow it. Then they'll follow the order. But if the people are already in, not Venezuela, sorry, El Salvador. Yeah. But if the people are already in El Salvador, they are not going to correct the situation, right, which is what we're seeing with the Abrego Garcia, showdown. So that's kind of maybe like they're listening in the sense of like, if you catch us before we do stuff in the middle of the night, the way we like to do, then we'll listen.
Yeah.
But they're also the ones that have to enforce what the judge. So the executive branch has to enforce what the judicial branch deems
says.
To be lawful.
Yep.
So it's like that's when you were really getting a test of how this should all work. And I hope that everyone's paying attention so that they can make those adjustments in the future, so that the next person that comes along isn't pushing this even further. But I mean, it's something. It's better than nothing. It's
something, but it has to be corrected for the people, not just in El Salvador, but Louisiana as well, which also were middle of the night kidnappings.
Right.
I mean, what else do you call it? I mean, that's what I call it in my book, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
And
there's one little detail too about the Abrego Garcia, which is that Chris Van Hollen last week. So after we finished recording, literally every time I walk out of the studio, there's like a news break. Andrew's like smiling because he's just like, yeah, there is. We can never cover it all. It doesn't matter. But Chris Van Hollen went to El Salvador to talk to him. and he finally gets to be able to sit down with him. And it's just a weird detail is like the El Salvadoran government put margaritas in front of them to show that like they're hanging out and isn't imprisonment fun, you know? And I wonder, just to close off this little segment, what do you think that, you know, Democrats going and making a show and like trying to kind of help the situation with their limited power, what do you think that's doing for public opinion? Is that like doing something for you, like Ronald, as a Democrat? Or I don't know if you're a Democrat, but like as someone who might not believe in El Salvador's maximum security prison.
Am I a Democrat? Look, are you kidding me? What? I agreed to be on this show. You look at my body. How dare you? But actually, no, I'm not a Democrat. I've considered myself to be a progressive, if anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is like, because at this point, the idea of being like Democrat is basically, anyway, I won't get into that. But yes, I can see them trying to impact public opinion, or at least, but they're still operating as politicians in a post-political world. Like, politicians don't do that anymore in the world that we live in now. It's not about you traveling there so you can get reelected saying that you visited him in El Salvador. Now you have to be like radical as a politician for me to actually be like, you're actually doing something, versus just photo ops and stuff that looks good on the campaign trail. And I still think that they're stuck in that world.
Okay. So it wasn't even enough for you.
No, it does. What did you do? Did you get him out? Like, you know, it would have been enough if he had assembled a crew of assassins and people to go down there and yank this man out and bring him back like Fast and Furious style. Then yes, he would have convinced me. But come on, this was just a photo op.
Right. Okay. Vicky, did you feel any, I don't know, smooth feelings?
I felt no feelings except what the heck is going on here? There was some like hotel chairs.
Yeah.
There were palm
trees. It was very confusing. The setting was very confusing.
And the guys in
like that's not Van Hollen's fault, obviously. Yeah.
And he kept saying, I'll follow up tomorrow, but I never heard what he actually said and what he said he's doing. It reminded me, and I stopped watching the show because it was just too painful, but of the first season of The Handmaid's Tale, when they all had to pretend everything was great because the other country came.
Was visiting.
Yeah, Mexico was visiting, and they were all like, look, we're happy. We're doing a dance for you. And I got like a chill down my spine when I saw that photo, because I'm like, oh, this means he really is being, I don't know, probably tortured.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, I think one thing that's maybe again nice for him is to know that there are still people that are fighting for him here. Like, you know, he's literally in a prison with no information, and he's in isolation, and it sucks. And that also a little symbol of like, when Democrats are back in power, this is like the kind of thing they would do, is be like, okay, now you're going to release him because obviously you listen to us and release him.
Yes.
So I think there's like a little something there. And I don't know. I mean, there's it's very hard to be in the minority position here in Congress right now. Let's quickly discuss the latest Signalgate drama with Pete Hegseth, I guess. The fun thing about this, I know, he needs the lightning phone, you know, that's what he needs. He loves not using the proper methods of communication that the Pentagon has outlined for a very long time. He loves using his phone and using it like he loves to add his wife and his brother. And there's just all these people that don't have security clearance that are now like very familiar with war details. I don't know. Is this maybe a sign that he will finally not have a job?
I thought it reeked of cokehead behavior. Especially the emojis and like the yes, we're doing yes, and I'm adding you, and a sign he's not going to have a job. I think it wasn't Trump. Well, last I checked, he was totally standing firm on him.
Well, also it's cokehead behavior, but it's also like like it's like Tom Hanks in the movie Big, where he's just like suddenly has all these adult things. He's like, oh my God, and he's like jumping on a bed because he's like
responsible.
Right.
Like it took a while, but he actually started acting like a responsible adult. You know,
and I feel like this is Pete Hegseth. Like this should be the premise of a movie, you know, that is like Pete Hegseth is actually just a child that went into a 13 going on 30 vortex or whatever, and that's you know. So Ronald, do you feel like there's chinks in the armor in terms of his status there?
I have this theory that like he is going to lose his job, but Trump is going to cite a different reason for it, because I think after this they know, they're like, he cannot keep doing this. They know, I know they are impressed upon the seriousness of this, but because it's liberal publications and the liberal media that's saying like, this is wild, you can't do this, they're like, no, yes we can. This isn't a big deal. Yes, we can. And even though they know, like, if this starts costing lives or getting bad, someone's going to have to go. And I think he's an easy target, so they can keep him around. It's like kind of like on Traitors, where if anybody watches that show, it's like you keep one of the bad faithfuls around because you could scapegoat them as long as you can until later on when you have to get rid of them in the show. If you watch Traitors, you'll get that, listeners.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that it'll be one, and I wish I could like summon the name of who was fired or resigned this way, but there are people that like, I guess maybe like Matt Gaetz or whatever, where it was just like, you know, I'm gonna withdraw my name, or I'm gonna resign because I'm a distraction, and I'm just gonna do this because of, you know. And then Trump went out and said they did nothing wrong. It's the media that forced them to resign. They did nothing wrong. But anyways, he resigns. You know, like I see that kind of thing happening, and they all try to save face instead of saying, you know, this was a breach of security and it was too bad to overlook, you know. And it's interesting because I think a sign of strength is to say, this is a breach of security that we will not abide. That's how strong we are as a party. That's how strong I am as a president. That's how confident I am as a president that I recognize a security breach and I act on it. And it's interesting because it's like the opposite is happening. And I don't understand how that's supposed to be a symbol of strength. I've never understood his concept of what strength is, because I feel like it's, you know what I mean, Vicky? I don't know. You know a thing or two about dictators.
I know. I really do. I think the thing that a narcissist like him hates the most is embarrassment.
Yeah.
So he's going to stand his ground that he's fine and hope. I think he always hopes everybody comes along, and when he sees they don't, he turns.
Right.
That's what I think. I mean, if we're going to decode a narcissistic dictator, I think the moment he sees that it's not going to work, he's just going to turn on him.
Right. All right, folks, let me know. What do you think? Does this mean something is moving? And maybe by this, I mean, probably by the time I walk out of the studio, there's going to be a fucking email that's like, Pete Hegseth has resigned. All right, we'll see. And let us move on to the next topic. Culture is currently awash in stories about opening a marriage. Miranda July had a book about this. Ada Calhoun has a new book out. It's called Crush, which I just read. It's excellent. Haley Molotek in The Cut wonders, instead of opening your relationship, should you just have an old school vintage sepia toned affair? Just a regular affair. And I'm curious, I don't know. Vicky, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know how open marriages work anyway. I think eventually there's going to be that weird, I would think there would be weird feelings or jealousy, or somebody gets too attached to somebody and it causes friction. But I'm not polyamorous. So like, I know there is a whole poly community that says it works. I think an affair is just not honest. You're putting your partner at risk versus an open marriage. However, I think with open marriages, people become dishonest anyway, because they're like going too far with feelings.
Ronald, do you feel like, from where you said, do you feel like polyamory, like mini retirements, have become like trendy or whatever? Like, is there some element of this that's like, we all used to just have affairs, and now this trend of polyamory has come up. So and again, I don't actually care if anyone is polyamorous or monogamous. I don't care. I'm just curious, like looking at it from a larger like sociological phenomenon.
I mean, I think polyamorous people have been polyamorous the entire time. Like whether we knew about them, whether it was a trend or whatever, they've been polyamorous the whole time. What's changed is the greater culture's relationship with polyamory. And I think that change hasn't been good for polyamorous people because like for I know a couple right now, they were polyamorous before they got married and they're still polyamorous after they got married and they're doing fine. They're rocking and rolling. What I've seen, the dangerous one is people who try to change midstream. They're monogamous in a relationship, married for a couple of years, have a couple kids, and then say, we should try polyamory. I'm like, no, you should try couples counseling. You try therapy. You should not try something that has been like tested and approved by people who are like committed to that way of life in a way that in most cases people who practice monogamy regularly just aren't. And I think that's the true problem is like that it's trending and our relationship with it has changed as opposed to the actual act.
Well, I love that polyamorous people have been around, and now it's just like a matter of whether or not we're writing about them. And also like there's so many books. I mean, in this piece in the Cut, they reference The Ethical Slut. There's a bunch of books and one of the things I think it's sort of like vegans were probably around before everyone started making fun of vegans, whenever that was. It continues, but like it's one of those things where like the vocabulary of it is maybe more annoying than the actual practice of it or something. One of the things that the writer says in her piece is she says, I remind myself that non-monogamy works about as well as monogamy does, which is to say not very. And I thought that was interesting because it's just like, yeah, basically whatever you choose, there's pitfalls and you like basically have to, work at it. I think the thing about monogamy, it sounds like you were sort of driving at this, Vicky, which is like monogamy feels a little bit like you're doing like a keto or something and you're like, look, I just know I can't do carbs. All right. Whatever else, I just eat that other stuff, but I can't do carbs. Right. But polyamory feels a little bit like calorie counting or something. Which is more annoying. There's all these like, and you need the weight, and then you need to log it all. You know what I mean? And like all that stuff. So I feel like there's something about like the rules and the dissipation of the rules in popular culture that have made it more difficult. And so I know people that instead of opening up their marriage, they basically have opened up their marriage to a one-time hall pass that shall not be talked about. And that feels like a happy medium between polyamory and having an affair.
Shortcut to resentment.
Well, this friend of mine basically was just like said to her husband, I'm going to just sleep with the guy, and then it'll just be this once, and then that's it. And then I'm letting you know. But I have like literally no interest in this guy emotionally at all. But like, I just needed like a different dick once or whatever. And then he was just like, okay. And then like that was sort of like it. And it was like oddly the least big deal of anything. Maybe they're special, these two people. But
Negin, I don't know if that was it. That was all they told you. I don't know if that was like it. There's probably more to that story. Like between like a staring at the wall. I need to
get updates and then regularly inform listeners of the status of these two special people. But so far as I can tell, it feels to have been not a big deal. So I am saying maybe there's a third way that isn't polyamory and then isn't having an affair. That said, I feel like in the history of time, there's been so many affairs that didn't also end in divorce. They're just like, they were like a little affair along the way or something. This makes me sound like I'm telling people to go have an affair. But and I'm like, again, I actually don't care. I'm just curious
I agree that an affair you make a lot of vows in marriage, but infidelity seems to be like the most popular one that is the most soul crushing. But there's a lot of vows people break that I think can be even worse. I mean, you can mistreat someone, you can abuse them, you can use them, you can lie to them, and like that one gets the most PR, infidelity. Yes. I do think marriages can survive affairs. I would be curious. I'll never talk to your friend because you won't disclose her identity, but like just once, like she's really riding on that one time being really good, which historically, like, is the first time you have sex with someone the best time? I don't think so.
Yeah. And if it is, you're not going to be curious about the second time.
Exactly.
Right. It's really just a preamble to a much larger text.
But I have to say, once you're attuned to polyamorous or swinging couples, you'll see them everywhere. And they will see you seeing them, because I have met so many swingers in the past 2 years. It like once it's like people in AA who just find each other. I'm not saying I'm a swinger, but I can tell who a swinger is.
It sounds like you're saying, Vicky.
I'm not. I don't. Are you kidding me? I don't want to deal with more than one man. Oh my God, Jesus. But like my friend and I went to a party, and I think we had like 6 pairs of swingers approach us. This was Colorado. They are swinging in Colorado.
Wow.
I think it's the lack of oxygen. Yeah.
Interesting. But also I feel like this is, I think, when you watch, period pieces or whatever about the 70s, there's like the big joke about the keys and the bowl and all that stuff. And then you pick your wife based on the key or whatever, key parties and all that. And I feel like the swinging 70s, that it was very, trendy. Yeah. And that was different than polyamory, because it did feel more like you do this for a night, then you come home. And I feel like we're just sort of redoing that 70s trend a little bit with some tweaks.
Yeah. Now
it's
the pineapple
vocabulary. Yeah.
The pineapple is the new keys, because that's everywhere now.
Oh my God. All right, folks, let me know. What do you think of these trends? All right, my friends, that is the end of the show. What a delight it has been to speak to both of you. And I would like for the people of Fake the Nation to be able to follow you and all the wonderful things that you do. Vicky Kuperman, where do they do that?
Instagram, TikTok, at Vicky Kuperman, VICKYKUPERMAN.
Folks, follow her. Check out the album Halfway There. It's so good. Check out the book, because it is literally like a bullet point survival guide. Ronald, where do people find you?
You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You should subscribe to my podcast. Wait for it. WEIGHT. You can find that wherever you're listening, even right now.
Folks, as you can tell, Ronald's so delightful, so you should be following all of his stuff and subscribing immediately. All right, and you know where to find me and all the things that I do. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. Please consider joining the Patreon at patreon.com/Negin Farsad, because it'll ensure the health of the show. And I want to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire. Thanks to everyone at HeadGum. Thanks to Gabi Alter, who wrote our theme music. Otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.